So as I said earlier, counting is yet to be concluded in Malawi after a presidential election as the Southeast African nation faces its worst economic crisis in decades, with soaring inflation, food and fuel shortages, the mounting impacts of climate change and deep political disaffection. The election, which pit current president Lazarus Chakwera against his predecessor Peter Mutharika, aside other contenders, was widely seen as a test of whether change is more than just campaign rhetoric. Many are saying that they are weary of the broken promises, and they question whether the polling results in this democratic process can deliver real solutions. So at this point, I'm joined by our guests, Dr. Sam Amadi, Director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought in Abuja. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, for coming around.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We also have Sellina Kainja, National Publications Limited online editor and Vice President of Political Science Association right here in Malawi. Thank you so much, Sellina, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So let me start with Sellina, because I usually see ladies first, all right? So Malawians await the results of the presidential election, but what is more pertinent to them that would have affected their choices in the polls on Tuesday?
Thank you so much. So this election is interesting in so many ways. Interesting with the terms of what would have motivated the people to vote for whatever choice they've made so far. As a bit of a context to this, literally people were coming from the long queues of fuel to go to polling stations. People some that wanted to drive to their polling stations couldn't do that because there's no fuel. And also the issues of forex. So the issue of fuel is coming in because there is no forex, and it proves to be very difficult for government to buy fuel using the local currency. And that is what has been on the ground in terms of people discussing or talking about why they would want to vote, either to vote Chakwera in or Chakwera out. But the main issues that would have motivated the people to make their choices is the economic hardships, the inflation. I think you already alluded to that. The issues of fuel, rising cost of living. Just to quickly give you a background, there are moments like I had my own experience. You go into a shop and you are there for 30 minutes. By the time you're picking your item from the shelves to the till, the price has changed. It's how bad. That's how bad it is. And those are the issues that I strongly believe has motivated many to vote whatever choice they've made, because we don't know yet the official results.
All right, fuel and food shortages, rising cost of living. Dr. Amadi, I mean, nearly 3/4 of Malawians, according to reports, live below the World Bank's poverty line of about $3 a day, and so far malnutrition. So, I mean, President Lazarus Chakwera had about 5 years to make changes to this deplorable situation in the country when he came into power. That was in 2020, I believe. Would you say that he failed to actually improve these conditions? Would you say he failed in his mandate, and that might actually affect the eventual outcome of this election?
The answer would be yes. I mean, clearly, the failure might not be because efforts were not made. Perhaps efforts did not match the level of crisis. You know, nobody thinks that a typical African country's crisis will be solved in 1 electoral second. But I think that the people are better assessors of their condition. So if the government has done well, you know, taken the advantage they have and taken opportunities, but things have not become very good. I think the voters will understand that there has been significant effort and significant result, and they may express confidence in the incumbent continuing and perhaps improving. But it looks like what we're facing across Africa, Malawi also in this case, is that incumbents fail for many reasons. One is perhaps first the complexity of the problem. Oftentimes, elections are based on rhetoric. I would say the campaign in prose, in poetry, and government in prose. So when during the election, don't forget that the challenger himself lost to the incumbent, and the challenger would fancy himself coming back to power. It doesn't mean that the challenger has done has kind of improved his understanding of the crisis and what to do. But the point is that, look, you get to power and then you start figuring out how to solve the problem. And oftentimes, these are wicked problems, and African leaders have not been able to prepare themselves. Of course, the dynamics of politics, destructive politics without any consensus, and politics without a developmental state makes it difficult even for a well-meaning leader to turn this around. And talk less of leaders who oftentimes are not well-meaning. So yes, economically, I think we could say it didn't quite, deliver the goods. But whether this will turn into a victory for the opposition also depends on three factors. We've seen that the last 2019 election, there are several irregularities. We're yet to see what the result is today, and whether there will be need for a runoff, or whether the courts will be called in to weigh in to verify and determine who won, just like 2019.
Okay.
But again, it's likely that we might see an upset, and we'll see incumbent lose the election. But it's still time to say. But again, I would say yes, based on the outcome, they have not done the job.
Okay, let me talk to Sellina. Dr. Sam Amadi said that there's a possibility that there might be an offset and that incumbents usually fail. But then some people are saying in Malawi that Lazarus Chakwera might just have a slight edge over this. Why? Because when you look at Malawi's latest report on headline inflation rates, it is said to be approximately 27.7% as of June 2025, which actually constitutes a slight decrease from previous highs of about 30% thereabout. So doesn't that mean that President Chakwera has performed creditably, in this particular case, enough to win the hearts of the people?
I think there isn't much difference in terms of the economic, I could say, changes that people can feel and see for themselves. Because even at that inflation rate, things are still quite high. And we haven't felt the reduction in terms of the inflation rate with that 27 and 30%. It's not a significant jump in terms of it. And because prices have not changed. If anything, they continue going up every day. So from the sentiments of the most Malawians, the key basic commodities that Malawians really need, issues of food, and we are talking of fertilizer, where maybe last year we were buying a bag of fertilizer, we can do the translation in terms of currency conversion, would buy a bag of fertilizer at 50,000 a quantity. But last season, we were buying the same bag of fertilizer at 120,000 a quantity. And that price has not changed. We talk of fuel prices. They haven't changed because fuel really drives the economy. If you don't have fuel, you don't have forex in the country, everything collapses. Transport fares, they go up, everything has just been basically gone. And maybe the other reason is because government hasn't really been strict in terms of managing the economy and also managing the prices. It has given a leeway to business people that everyone is basically making their prices adjustments without any. Really, you ask them, why are you raising the prices? They are raising prices sometimes on commodities that they actually ordered way before the inflation was either high or low. So because of that lack of discipline from government and from leaders especially, we really haven't felt the decrease in the inflation. That's what I can say.
Okay. Now, Dr. Amadi, now I'm not trying to make excuse for the Chakwera administration, but then we understand that Malawi battled a devastating cyclone, a regional drought that wiped out crops at some point. It is currently experiencing fuel shortages, like Sellina mentioned. Now, one could say that these issues are not directly the president's faults, are they?
Well, they're not. I mean, you talk about the weak foreign exchange, reserves. You talk about flooding. You talk about infrastructure. There are many things that the president cannot, in 5 years, perhaps put together. There are also external vulnerability. There are issues of food security, high inflation, just like we're experiencing in Nigeria and elsewhere. So this is a problem. It happens all over the world. if things get bad at in your watch, when things are bad and you get to power and you don't fix them good enough and in good time enough, you suffer electorally if elections are fair. So that's why it's difficult to have a political party be in power in developed economies or advanced democracies for 3 electoral cycles. You get voted at because voters are going to express. The question always been, are we better off? Again, the other factor here is those who are opposing the government. Do they excite hope? They're in power before themselves. So the Malawian voter will look at the good effort by the government and contrast with how the previous government managed these circumstances and ask themselves whether there is enough justification to trust that the opposition leader would make no difference. So voting is not purely rational. There are so many behavioral issues that come in: recency factor, secession, headline news, things that are more recent. So if inflation, if weak foreign exchange, inadequate infrastructure, if all these food security impact immediately, people are likely going to respond. So I agree that in reality, maybe the government has done good enough to be trusted to continue with perhaps some changes here and there. In reality, it might be that this is not their fault. There are several factors, external headwinds they have to deal with, fragilities that over time compound. But in electoral democracy, you get punished if voters think that you've not done enough or they're not better off. So the final conclusion will be how rational the voters are and what hope does the opposition present. If you are totally a untested candidate, you come with a hope that you do better. But if you had been in power for some time, then you are starting with showing that you are better, things were better in your own time than now, and that might be difficult for opposition to really do. So ultimately, we are going to see a close election as expected, but whether the incumbent survives will depend on these factors. But so far, I think Malawi is in a bad shape, perhaps getting better, but still in a bad shape.
All right, let's consider one factor, Sellina. Now, the Chakwera administration has been labeled as one fraught with corruption scandals. You are a Malawian in Malawi. Is the president the most corrupt leader, or is he a leader that has overseen the worst corruption era in Malawi's history?
I can say he's a leader that has overseen rampant corruption, including corruption happening within the cabinet with people, his advisors. There are several that have been already accused. Some have been investigated with the SCB. He actually himself fired one of his ministers because of corruption allegations. And the biggest challenge with the Chakwera as an individual, as a leader, is that he's a leader that is very indecisive. He is not able to quickly and be firm and stand on his feet and say, you are fired. I'll just give you an example. A week ago before the elections, actually it should be days before elections, he was speaking to Malawians in a national address to Malawians. And in there, he actually said the issues of fuel program is sabotage. There's someone who's sabotaging the country, and that person is working for the National Oil Company of Malawi, for it Nokima, it's a government entity. And he said he knows the person. He has the name of the person who is sabotaging the president because it's a kind of campaigning for arrangements. But guess what? When everyone was waiting to hear that the president would say, I have fired that person, he goes on and saying, I'm not firing you today, I'll fire you after elections. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we faced with the Chakwera administration. Personally, he is a personable person, but as a leader, he is quite indecisive. And this is just one of the many examples that he has failed to make a decision that is so obvious to everyone, saying, probably this is the right thing to do, and Chakwera would probably just be skating around, dilly-dallying. And in the end, it's the same people that have come to bite him. And because the back stops at him, We can't say he's a leader. He's failed.
Okay. Well, thankfully, we know that Peter Mutharika is in the race. Joyce Banda is also in the race. So the people of Malawi have about 15 to 16 other candidates that they would probably prefer to actually take the gauntlet from the current president. I must say a very big thank you, because we're actually constrained with time right now. Sellina Kainja, National Publications Limited Online Editor and Vice President of Political Science Association, for your time on the show, and Dr. Sam Amadi, Director, the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Thank you so much for your time on the show.
So much.
So the Malawian Electoral Commission has come out to say that it has about 8 days to declare who would finally become the next president of Malawi. So we are going to wait for that and know what the final outcome of the election, the presidential election is. Thank you so much for being part of today's conversation. You can watch all episodes of the conversation on YouTube at News Central TV, and of course DSTV 422, GoTV 23, StarTimes 274, and other social media platforms are there for you to connect with us. I am Liko Onobanjo. Enjoy the rest of your day.